My name is Bindu and I'm the owner at Crafty Meraki. I'm super excited to be here today at my very first volume event to share this incredible shaker tag with you guys. We're going to be making this shaker tag together. We're going to be learning loads of tips and tricks along the way. So let's get started. The shaker tag kit comes with this stencil set called the Blooming Halo, which is a layering stencil set. This die, which is called Margaret Flora die, and also a tag die, which is called the Wishes tag. This frame-worthy die is optional, and it was used to cut out the window using the smallest layer from the tag. Using this Wishes tag die, just the tag portion of it, I cut out 3 pieces of tags for making our shaker tag today. Just using white cardstock, I just cut out 3 pieces. So the first 2, just using the outside tag, and the third one, I used the mini slimline frame-worthy die, the center portion, and I die cut it inside the tag shape to make our window for the shaker. So all I did was I used the innermost frame die with the tag, and I ran it through the die cut machine all together so we can have a shaker and a window all cut out at the same time. As we're making the shaker tag, I'm going to share some tips and tricks on using your layering stencils to get the best results possible. One of the few things that I want to share is we are going to use a wreath layering stencil today, but we're not actually making a wreath. We're going to be making a pattern paper using the wreath layering stencil. This is just one of the many ways that I usually like to stretch my supplies. So moving on to the first step for creating the pattern using our wreath stencil, I'm going to line up my wreath stencil to the grid on my Wendy Wecky Make Art station. So I'm going to try to make a corner using the tape as you see on the bottom. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure my stencil stays in place and it does not move while I am putting ink down on my tag. So I'm going to make a nice L corner, line up with the darker grid lines on the left and the bottom, and I'm going to tape it down in place. Once I have done that, now I can simply add my tag and I can ink blend right on top. The idea is to make a pattern paper, but we do not want to move our stencil. We want to move our tag to make our pattern. So we're going to make the backer of our shaker tag first. So I'm going to put a pattern on the back side, which is going to be seen through the window. So as I said, I am taking my shaker tag, I am going to put it under my stencil, and I'm going to start inking it to create a pattern. We want to make sure that the stencil is safely secure before you get started, just so that you get a nice, clean, crisp impression. For this layer, I am going to be using a lighter green and a darker green ink shades. I'm using Pink Fresh Studio inks, and we're going to start with the lighter shade, and we're going to start applying ink with a very, very, very light hand. The idea is that if you go darker, you cannot take ink back. But if you're lighter and you want to keep adding more depth and more color, you can always keep adding, you can always make it more saturated. So go with a very light hand, start off with a very light hand and put some ink down first. And if you're not satisfied, you want to make it darker, then you can keep applying more ink right on top. Also, If you only have one shade of ink, for example, and you don't have too many shades, but you want to work with layering stencils, it's easy to do using the same exact technique. So you start with a very light hand, you apply the first layer with a light wash almost, a very light hand, light wash, and then you take the second layer, use the same exact color, but this time go heavy-handed. So apply a lot of ink through the same layering stencil with the same ink. So here's what it looks like after one pass and after we've done one round of our base layer. So I am going to move the shaker tag, as I said. The idea is to move the shaker tag. We're going to make it random. We're going to make it look like a pattern paper. So the more we move the tag, the more organic it's going to look when we put our ink down and when we come up with the pattern. So when we're ink blending, we can use a piece of tape to cover the stencil where we do not want to ink up. For example, in this case, I'm using tape so that I don't get ink where there's already ink on the tag, and I just want to use a random ink pattern where I do not have any ink pattern. So I'm going to continue this process. I'm going to keep going around. I'm going to keep layering up, keep adding more ink, and I will add ink wherever I see white spaces. And as I am doing all this, I'm turning my tag, as I said, to give it a very organic look and not make it look put together. So for this layer, I'm going to continue to turn my tag, add more ink through the stencil. This is still just the same stencil, same layer that I'm working with. I'm just going to keep turning and keep adding a light ink wash on top through the stencil. Now I have the finished part with the bottom layer, and I'm satisfied with how it looks. So now we're going to move on to step 2 of the layering stencils. This layering stencil has 5 layers in it. 2 of the layers are for the flowers. 2 more are for this detailed leaf layer, which we're using for this shaker tag. And then there's the last layer, which uses only one single layer of the leaves. So we removed the stencil number 3, which you can see on the right hand corner. Hope you can see they are numbered. Stencil 3 is what we just used, and stencil 5, which is the next detailed layer for these leaves, is what we're going to use next. So they both line up perfectly exactly, and that's why we use the guide, so that we don't have to guess where the layers go. All we have to do is line them up to that same corner, tape them down, and then use the same stencil or use the second layer as we need to switch out. So once we have the next layer stencil in place, we're going to repeat our previous step exactly the same way. I am sliding my tag into place, and I'm going to find the spot where the leaf layer lines up with the top layer. So because it's a stencil, you can actually see through, and you can see where the leaf top layer sits on top of your bottom pattern paper that you just created. It sounds complicated, but trust me, it is very easy to do, especially because you're using this method, the trick of lining it up to the grid, and you're also able to see the ink through the stencil. So next we're going to take the darker layer of ink and we're going to just apply the ink layer right on top, and now we're going to see that darker shade pop through. And all we have to do is find the layer that we used, find the leaf shape that we used, and line it up right underneath, put the darker color right on top. So there you can already start seeing the darker color peeking through. This layer also has some berries like on it, and I'm going to use the same green color and I'm going to apply the berries, or I'm going to make the berry pattern as well on the same go. So this is going to be pattern paper. It's going to be hidden with our shaker. It's going to be underneath all the shaker elements. So there's the berries that I was talking about. It's going to be underneath our shaker window and the shaker elements anyway. So the more we can keep it organic, the more beautiful it's going to look, I think, in my opinion. So I'm just going to keep continuing. I'm going to add the ink layer, the darker ink now on top. But like I said, if you only have one shade of ink, it will take some elbow grease, but just keep layering the same color right on top. Maybe it will take you 2 or 3 layers to get it to be a darker shade, but you can still achieve this look with just one shade of ink. You just have to give it a try, and you have to apply some elbow grease, like I said. So let's take a look at what our tag looks like so far. So this is just with the one layer done and then the second layer right on top. You can see where it gets darker, and you can also see that they line up. It's pretty easy to see through the stencil like I was talking about. So now we're just going to turn it around, find the leaf at the bottom, same exact step. We're going to find the leaf at the bottom. We're going to layer it right on top. So this way we can see through, but we can also apply the darker shade right on top. The good thing about the Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station is that it comes with magnets, so you can use the magnets to keep your tags or your card bases or your paper intact. That frees up your hands to do ink blending, pick up ink, you name it. So I actually like this tool very much. I use this a lot for stenciling. But here's another look. This is what the tag looks like so far. So I'm going to repeat this process. We're going to keep going. I'm going to repeat the process and come up with a nice, beautiful pattern right on top of our shaker. So once I have a lot of the white spaces covered, this is kind of what I'm left with. This is kind of what my tag looks like at this point. So now we're going to finish this layer and we're going to move on to the second layer, which is the acetate window panel. I am going to use this stencil number 4, which is a leaf pattern that's in the stencil, which is in the blue that you see on the back of the stencil here. This is a standalone layer. This can go on its own. You don't need to layer it again. So the standalone layer of leaf I'm going to use for the top window of the shaker card. So this next step, you can either do that before or after you glue on the acetate. In my case, I'm doing that first because this way I can keep the acetate free and clear of any ink. Even if you use it with the acetate, if you decide to do this step with acetate already glued in place, all you'd have to do is wipe the acetate clean with a microfiber cloth or a Swiffer cloth. Make sure there's no static, make sure there's no ink or anything so that your shaker bits are free and clear to move around. So as I said, I'm going to glue the acetate later, but first we're going to do exactly the same thing. Our window is free and clear and we have a blank canvas. So now I'm going to turn the tag around just like we did with the bottom layer, and I'm going to find leaves to keep adding ink through. Again, the idea is that we're going to make a pattern paper exactly the same way on the window shaker using the stencil number 4, which is the standalone leaf die. And I'm using the darker shade of ink for this because I'm not doing any layering. I'm only using one layer of the green of the leaves. So you could even switch colors out if you'd like. You can make it a different color if you like. So the possibilities again are endless. You can choose any color you like, any shade you like, especially if you have very limited amount of inks, this could work very, very easily. So again, I'm just finding my open spaces and I'm going to ink blend right through. I'm going to keep adding my ink, keep ink blending, keep finding the open white spaces, and I'm going to continue with my pattern. Because the window is already cut out, it makes our ink blending a little bit easy because all you have to do is line it up just so there's enough space on the white space to cover up with ink. Once again, the important step to keep in mind here is that we do not want to turn the stencil, but we want to keep turning our paper or tag or card base, whatever you're working with. This way, the layering portion becomes very easy, and also this way, the pattern can still remain organic. So I'm going to continue on, I'm going to make my pattern, and then we're going to finish assembling this shaker. So once I am done making my pattern, this is kind of what the window looks like. And now when they're both put together, this is what our tag would look like with the shaker bits. Now that we have our acetate glued and our tags are both ready, we're going to move on to the next step of adding some embellishments. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our Margaret die set that's included in your kit, and all I did here is die cut this flower portion, as you can see here, with different colors of cardstock. I am going for a rainbow look here, as you can see in the finished tag. I'm going for the rainbow look, so I die cut it from different colored cardstock. And I separated the smaller dies from the larger ones. So if you can look in this one, there are some smaller flowers and there are some larger ones. The larger ones we're going to use to glue down on the front as well as inside the shaker tag. So I'll show you more details as we go along, but we're going to use the larger ones to glue in place, and we're going to use the smaller ones inside as shaker bits. So let's get started with our gluing. I'm using a jewel picker. This one is by Crafty Meraki. We call this the Bling Buddy, and it has two tips. One side is the actual jewel picker and the other side is a ball tip. You can use this to poke your die cuts. You can use it to add texture. You can actually also use it to score your card bases if you're a card maker. So this is, as I said, my Bling Buddy. And what I'm going to do next is we're going to put this one away for a second. And as you can see in my finished tag here, I'm going to take my glue, and I'm actually not going to follow exactly what I did in the other one. I'm going to take my larger flower die cuts here, and I'm going to use some glue to add the smaller die cuts. I'm going to also fill this up so it stays in place. And I'm going to use the pink one to add on top to layer it, just like that. So you see how I have the red bottom? Even though these are not layering dies, I am making my own layers as I go along. And I am actually going to add one more layer to this. I'm going to use another pink layer, and I'm going to add it right on top, just like that. And then on the top, when we're done with everything, we're going to add some gems right on top. But I'm going to keep building my flowers. So let me go to this corner now, and I'm going to use my teal flower because I like it. And on top, maybe I will use another pink flower to layer on top. So we're going to keep building our layers just like this. And you can actually use the back end of this tool to press down your die cuts in place once you've added the glue. So just like I'm doing there, you can use this tool to attach them. I am going to actually, let's try this one. This one is by Crafty Meraki also. These are called our illusion gems. And the reason you will see here in a second is because they actually will shine a different color depending on how the light hits them. I hope you can see, but oops, I dropped a bunch of gems. But they will shine a green, yellow, pink, rainbow. You'll see all kinds of colors depending on how the light hits them. They are going to shine differently. You can see shades of green, red, pink. You can see a lot of shades in here. So these are called illusion gems. And all I'm going to do, this one is a unicorn. This one's called Unicorn Magic. We have lots of colors. All of our gems, the majority of them are all illusion gems. This one is called Unicorn, the one that I picked. This one is called Sunny Sparkle because this is a yellow base color, whereas this one's a blue base, but this one's a yellow base. The one I used on my original is a yellow base, but it still has that illusion. It's still, you can still see shades of green. I hope it's visible, but you can still see shades of greens and yellows and pinks, depending on how the light hits them. So in this case, I'm going to take my Unicorn Magic and I am going to glue down. Again, this is the jewel picker, like I said, so all we have to do is just pick up the jewel with the tip. And then once you have a glue in place, it'll just drop on its own. You don't need to add any pressure. It'll just literally sit. I'm not using any pressure at all. I'm adding pressure with the back end, but when you put down the glue, the gem, just for example, right there, that's it. I'm just picking up and dropping off. So we're going to continue assembling our flower exactly like that. I'm going to add some random placements wherever we kind of feel like it. Let's do a purple this time. I'm actually even covering up the window, sorry. I'm actually even covering up the acetate window a little bit because why not? This is our tag. We can do whatever we like with it, right? So I used the purple, and let me see if I have a purple. No, I have a light blue actually. Let's use the light blue with the purple. What do you think? Looks good. Okay, so I'm gonna use some more glue on top. And if you notice, I'm actually also using this to pick up paper, not just the gems. I'm gonna use it to pick up paper, and I'm gonna glue it in place just like that. And now I'm gonna use the back end to push it into place. We're gonna take another bling bling, and I'm gonna add my gem right in the middle, right there. And I'm gonna press it down in place with the back end. There we go. So I'm gonna continue doing that. I will build up a couple more layers along the edges here. Maybe let's add one here. So just like that, I'm using the Bling Buddy to also pick up my die cuts. There we go. Now I'm gonna use maybe a yellow on top. No, actually I want to use a red on top. Let's see. There we go. That looks much better. So I'm going to use a red on top, and I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up with the Bling Buddy just like so. And there we go. Now all I have to do is add a little bit more glue in the middle. I'm going to pick up one more of my lovely gems, and I'll just drop it in place. There we go. This one is almost done. So I have actually finished gluing to my window shaker the flowers, the larger ones, and I also glued a few of the flowers onto the backer, which will be inside the shaker window. I simply glued on the large flowers inside, and I glued the larger, and I layered them as I was talking about, the larger and the smaller ones on top. I just did a random, I even used some green die cuts. If you can look over here, if you can see this one. So all that's left now to do is to add our foam tape and add the smaller die cuts of the flower. We're going to mix these along with some sequins. I have some clear white sequins here. We're going to mix them along with some sequins, and we're going to add them here and then glue with our foam tape right on top. For the foam tape, I am using this set called the Cubies. This is by Barely Arts. The thing I like about this is the fact that they have a double layer, if that's the thickness. So this is the double layered. This is also the double layered thickness here. As you can see, it's quite thick. And then there's the normal thickness, which is this one here. Just for comparison, this is normal and this is the double thickness. So this variety pack comes with a lot of options. But in this case, because we want our flowers and the sequins and everything to move very freely, I'm going to use the double thickness foam, as you can see here. So I'm going to use some double thickness foam right on top here in the edges. And then we're going to finish up our shaker tag. So for this next step, all I'm doing is I'm taking the little pieces of the Margaret Flora die, the die cuts, the smaller ones, and I've mixed it with some clear sequins, and I just put it in the middle here of the backer shaker tag. This front portion, the window portion, I already have prepped it with some foam tape, the Barely Arts Cubies, as I was saying, with the double dimension. And all the release paper is also already off. Now all that's left to do is to put this right on top and glue these two pieces together. So I'm gonna carefully line them up because my foam tape is already exposed. I'm gonna carefully line up this side first, and then we're gonna glue down the other side as well. So as I said, I wanna do this very carefully so that I don't go over. Now it's all in place. I'm pressing down my foam tape into place, and we have our shaker ready. So the one thing I want to point out is, as I was saying earlier, I love finding ways to stretch my supplies a lot, by a lot. So I love using my die cuts as embellishments. As you see here, plus also use your die cuts as shaker bits. I think this is something that a lot of people don't think about, but this is a very, very fun way to use your smaller die cut pieces if you have those. And all you have to do is, like I said, either you could mix them up with the sequins of your choice, or you could use them by themselves if you were to die cut them with, let's say, gold metallic paper, shimmer paper, any kind of shiny paper that you want to use. You can die cut with the dies, and you can use those alone inside the tag. For the last step on this tag, all I did was I took another tag die cut that I had already prepped, and I glued on the word wishes and birthday that are both part of this tag die. So the big word wishes, I die cut it with white cardstock and I glued it on. And then I also cut this word out, the word birthday, with the that comes with this tag, using a red cardstock, and all I did was just glued it on sort of diagonally right on top of the word wishes. And as I was saying, this tag also allows you to write a note inside for your recipient. You can write on both sides here. I wanted to write a note inside, so I added a third piece, but you could very well stop right here, add your wishes sentiment on the back, add a ribbon, and you're good to go. In my case, I wanted to write a note. I made this for my husband for his birthday, but I wanted to write a note on the inside and add it to his gift, his birthday gift. So I used another extra third piece tag on the back, but this is totally optional. It's entirely up to you. If you prefer to keep it just plain and simple, you can just use the word wishes right on the back here and you can finish it, or you can do what I did here and add a third piece to the back. Now I want to show you some more examples of even more possibilities with not only shaker tags, but also this wishes word. This tag here is, as you can see, it's a little bit different from this, because in this case I cut out a window, but in this case we used the word wishes directly to cut out from the tag and used acetate backing, same exact process. So you can use the word wishes right here, used acetate on the back, and on the inside the word wishes is used again with a pattern paper. So all I did here was die cut the word wishes with pattern paper and used sequins to fill it up. So this is another way to get more out of your shaker tags. Here are some more examples of shaker tags that I've made. So this one also uses exactly the same concept, the same dies, only this time I have used a thinner foam tag to attach it directly, and the front panel uses a different stencil. So all I did was I had a butterfly stencil and I just stenciled it on. Same exact way, just used some more, make it look like cherry blossoms, I guess. Spring is in the air, right? So to make it look like cherry blossoms, I just use these. You can use, actually, this die set comes with these branches. You can use the same branches and the leaves that come with the set. And you can use the flowers. You can make a scene right here. And you can add your birthday wishes on the back, just like I was talking about. Now, even more ways to use the stencil, the layering stencil. Here's another project that I started. In this shaker tag, we use the leaves from the Blooming Halo stencil But for this shaker tag here that I started, I used the roses. I did exactly the same thing. I literally took these roses, I put them on my Wendy Wecky Make Art station, and I just stenciled on the flower portion because the flower layers are separate. So layer 1 and layer 2 in the stencil, as you can see, only have the flowers. So I followed the exact same process, but I only stenciled on the flowers. And this is going to be the inside. And I did the same thing for the outside window as well. So all I did here, same exact thing, but in this case, only one layer of the rose of the stencil. Same process as we did for this one. So the inside, I did 2 layers. Outside, I did only 1 layer, 1 color of pink, and I just simply finished it off with this. If you want for this one, you can leave it plain. You don't have to do all the embellishments. You can also do the same embellishments, or you can do this that we did here and just add some leaves on the top, just embellish it with leaves. You can use the same thing inside. You can use your florals inside for shaker bits. And you can also add your wishes tag on the back, your wishes sentiment on the back. So there are so many different possibilities that with this same die, it is really, the sky is the limit. There are some Christmas shaker tags that we made with this exact same wishes die. These are the exact same shape as you can probably see from here. These shaker tags have the same wishes tag that we used. We cut out a window in the middle and used some embellishments, Christmas themed embellishments on the top. And here's another one that we used. These, by the way, are from our paper collection, which is called Effortless Artistry Paper Collection. And it comes with pre-colored images that you can simply die cut. It matches with the stamp and a die. You can simply die cut all of these sentiments, and you can, I'm sorry, not the sentiments. You can die cut all of these colored images, and all you have to do is glue them onto your shakers. These are super handy to have because Christmas time, you probably will be making tens, if not hundreds of these. So these are very easy to use. You just use your coordinating die and you cut out all these. Each booklet comes with 4 different colors, 4 different styles of coloring. And all we did here is used the Blooming Noel die cut, and then we just added a sentiment and still made it another shaker tag for Christmas. So the possibilities really are endless in this case. There are so many different options, so many different ways we can do this. I hope you give it a try. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial for today. And I really hope to see you all again soon at the next volume event. Thank you for spending your Friday with me. Bye.